À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top, allumage moteur Vulcain. Allumage des deux EAP et décollage VA255, SES-17 et Syracuse 4A.
Well, the Ariane 5 launcher has just successfully completed its liftoff, but the mission is not over yet, is it, David? Other equally important steps are still to come. These include the separation of the two satellites on board, Syracuse 4A and SES-17, which should reach their geostationary position in about 30 minutes. Is that correct, David? I'm so happy.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
David, you are also connected with Kourou via an earpiece, where the CVI transmits all the information concerning the evolution of the mission. What is the CVI and how does it work?
Yes, I have a direct link with the CVI team, a team located in Kourou who receives the real-time flight data sent by the launcher to the tracking stations. And right now they confirm that all the parameters are as expected. These parameters include the altitude, the velocity, the engine parameters.
So at 2 minutes, 19 seconds from liftoff, the CVI should announce, am I right, the separation of the boosters? Is that the first thing?
Yes, that's right.
How important is this step for the mission, David?
Yes, in a few seconds, the booster separation should take place. The launcher will have gone through the most stressful part of the launch.
Stressful.
Yes, in terms of mechanical loads, dynamic pressure, and the booster separation will be at around 65 kilometers and traveling at the speed of Mach 6.5. So it should come up in just a few seconds.
So a few seconds, 3 seconds. Yep, we've seen it now.
Yes, we have the confirmation of the separation, yes.
Okay. So this stage is the first of many, and in a few seconds Ariane will be at an altitude of 110 kilometers, and the DDO will then be announcing the separation of the fairing. What can you tell us about this particular stage, David?
Yes, so at 110 kilometer altitude, the atmosphere has become really thin, only a few air particles remain. So at this point, the fairing, which is there to protect the satellites from the atmosphere, the heat and the sound at liftoff, and during the ascent, is no longer needed. So it is jettisoned to save weight. So this again should happen in just about 10 seconds.
This is an important moment as well. Well, every stage is important, every phase. We're just waiting now. Couple of seconds for the separation of the fairing. 318, there we go.
Séparation de la coiffe.
We just have seen it. We've seen it on the screen.
And so we have the confirmation from the DDO.
Brilliant.
As well.
So by separating from its fairing, Ariane 5 will now be approximately 2 tons lighter, which is a significant weight in flight.
La trajectoire est nominale.
SES-17, one of the 2 satellites launched tonight, had a launch mass of more than 6 tons, and it is one of the 10 heaviest telecommunication satellites launched by Arianespace since its creation. Am I correct, David?
Yes, that's right, yes.
So at this stage of the launch, we have a launcher that weighs what and is traveling at what speed? We can see it up on the screen, I think. Can you tell us?
Well, in terms of mass, the launcher was about 780 tons at liftoff. Right now, we have only about 149 tons left. And the speed, as you can see, yes, it's about 2.7 kilometers per second, which is about a third of what we need to reach. At the end of the flight, we will be about 9.3 kilometers per second.
So now up on... We've got Ariane 5 up there. Can you talk to us about the images we're seeing up here?
La propulsion est nominale.
Yes, so you have the launcher as it is right now with the main stage, and then on top the upper stage and the 2 satellites on the right-hand side. And on the right, you see, yes, the different parameters, the altitude of the launcher, and then the ground track with the trajectory that it will follow along crossing the ocean and then Africa.
Could I just ask you, what will the next launch at Ariane 6 bring in terms of adaptability?
Well, it will bring a much larger fairing size, and that will help to launch any two large communication satellites. And also, we will have a reignitable upper stage, which will also allow to deploy satellites in different orbits.
So, David, in our previous program, Road to Space, we gave you an update on the new heavy launch vehicle Ariane 6 and the state-of-the-art custom-built launch pad that was being prepared to receive the new launcher. Well, unbelievably, it was inaugurated a few weeks ago in Kourou. And we now have a video coming up, a report we've done with our teams, and we'd like you to take a look. This is coming up in the next 15 seconds. Next Tech. Have you been to the new launch pad?
Yes, it's indeed quite amazing, yes.
It will welcome Europe's upcoming Ariane 6 rocket. Ella-4 is made up of the launch pad, which is the base that supports the launcher itself, all structures and equipment necessary for final assembly operations, the launch table that is embedded in it, the mobile gantry and the umbilical mast. The new CSG launch pad is what you'd call state-of-the-art. Central to its design, two important objectives: to reduce launch costs, achieved by integrating the launcher horizontally, and automating operations. The second objective was the environmental aspect: archaeological excavations, a wildlife inventory, and to cede 1,336 hectares of land to the Conservatoire du Littoral to offset constructions. As for infrastructures, the Ella-4 complex will significantly minimize the use of air conditioning and therefore energy consumption during operations. We will, of course, come back to you to talk about this 9th launch zone, which will shortly welcome Ariane 6. But for the moment, let's continue to follow the progression of Ariane 5 on its 111th mission. The DDO, head of operations in Kourou, has just announced the acquisition of the Natal station. David, you have been our expert throughout this program in Road to Space since the beginning of the mission. Can you talk to us a bit more about this stage of the flight, which is as crucial as the first?
Yes, so right now the main stage is in the last seconds of its job. The main engine will shut down in a few seconds, and the stage will be separated. And after that, there will be the ignition of the upper stage engine. So it should come up in a few seconds. And
the shutdown must be now. The upper stage?
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Extinction moteur Vulcain.
DDO is just telling us that.
Yes, we have.
Séparation de l'étage principal cryotechnique.
We have the confirmation of the separation, and we have the confirmation
Allumage de l'étage et du
as
moteur
well of the
HS-7
ignition of the upper stage engine.
So what does that all mean?
Well, it means that everything is going as expected. It's good news. And in the meantime, we have also heard that we had acquired the Natal tracking station, which is in Brazil. And so for the time being, everything is good.
So, so we don't see the launcher anymore?
No, well, for the time being, in fact, we are still being tracked both from the Gallia station, which is right next to the launch site, and from the Natal station in Brazil. But yes, the visibility from the Gallia station should be lost in a few seconds.
So sorry, can you just take us through those steps again? What will be happening next? We're at now 10 minutes 11 after the launch.
Yes. So
we're tracking on the map. If we see on the map,
right now
on the right,
we can see on the map that we are north of Brazil.
Well, before the loss of natal, which is...
Yes.
La propulsion est nominale et le
And
pilotage est calme.
we see that the launcher is basically flying horizontally. It's increasing its speed.
Going towards
it's maybe,
the east?
It's even going down a little bit to gain some speed. And it's going across the Atlantic at very quickly at 7.2 kilometers per second.
We're now 1 minute away from the loss of natal.
Yes.
What does that mean? What does that mean for Ariane 5?
Well, it means that, yes, in a few seconds, we should be too far to be visible from the tracking station in Natal in Brazil. So we will have a short period during which the launcher will not be tracked by the ground stations. But this is not a problem because the launcher has like a hard drive where it can store the data and then it will download it when we reach the following tracking station, which is in the Ascension Island in the middle of the Atlantic.
So, for example, will the DDO be telling us all of this at 11:53 in 10 seconds' time? Is he the person who...
Yes, he should be telling that to us. Of course, these are the theoretical times. Sometimes the tracking is better than expected, meaning that we may not lose it at the time that is expected. We can lose it a bit later on.
I'm just being told in my earpiece that in a couple of seconds we will be seeing that launch. Here we go. I think we're going to be seeing
La
it.
trajectoire est nominale.
Oh, no. He's just announcing exactly what you said. But as you see, on the left-hand side of our screen is the launch. Can we go through it again?
Right.
Can you talk us through it?
Yes, we saw there the ignition of the Vulcan engine. This engine was checked right after its ignition, and once everything was checked to be normal, then the ignition of the boosters took place. Once the boosters are ignited, there is nothing that can hold the launcher down. So we lifted off with a large thrust, more than 1,500 tons, mainly from the boosters.
In about 20 minutes, Ariane 5 will place the two satellites SES-17 and Syracuse 4 into geostationary orbit. It's been a long journey from the clean rooms of Thales Alenia Space in Cannes. Well, we went to meet Kevin and Patrice on the Thales site. They both worked on the design and construction of these technological gems. Let's hear what they have to say. This is today's Space Work, a report for Road to Space, which is coming up now. During this report, Hervé Derry talks to us a lot about sovereignty. Well, it's a term that we hear more and more in the field of energy and data storage. Control of space is also a sovereignty issue for France's defense and national security. Free access to and use of outer space are conditions for the country's strategic autonomy, whether for communication, navigation, observation, identification, or information. Space capabilities are necessary for the preparation and conduct of all military operations. But we also know that space has become an increasingly militarized scene of confrontation. What with jamming and espionage are developing, and the democratization of access to space is making it a source of rivalry between many state and non-state players, both historical and emerging. So in order to move forward, a new armament program called Mastering Space has been launched. It is made up of two components, surveillance and active defense. France's goal is to better monitor its satellites and, in the event of a hostile act, to respond in an appropriate and proportionate manner in accordance with the principles of international law. But then, hey, let's get back to Ariane 5. The launcher left Kourou more than 20 minutes ago, and during our report, the DD announced what? What did he announce, David? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so he announced several things, the acquisition of the ground station in Malindi, but also, and more importantly, the shutdown of the upper stage engine, so the launcher has now reached the targeted orbit, and we are now going into the next phases to prepare the separation of SES.
Tell us about the next phase, then.
Yes, the next phase, as you see in the images, the launcher is moving around, turning around to put SES-17 in the right position for its separation. This separation should take place in a couple of minutes now.
But in also less than 5 minutes, Ariane 5 will put into orbit SE-17, one of the 2 passengers. This is a key stage of the mission. This 6-ton satellite is driven by a powerful 5th-generation digital processor, the DDP. It will be able to process 100 times more data than the previous generation and will enable governments to accelerate their policies to reduce the digital divide in America. So, just before the launch of this satellite, which is the 164th satellite designed by Thales Alenia Space and launched by Arianespace, the DDO should also announce the loss of Libreville. Can you explain?
Yes, we are now, as you see in the map.
I'm looking up now on the right, yeah.
In the map, we see that we have traveled across Africa, and we are continuing into the Indian Ocean, and therefore, yes, we have lost the Libreville station, which is on the west coast of Africa.
It's incredible, all the journey Ariane 5 has done. So we are waiting for the separation of SES-17, and what does this step represent for all the teams? This must be another crucial phase for your client.
Yes, this is a quite intense moment. The separation is a very important milestone for SES and for Thales Alenia Space teams, of course, and also for us at Arianespace.
It is the culmination, David, of how many years of work?
Well, it's the result of many years of studies, manufacturing, integration, and tests for each one of these satellites. And for us, on the launcher side, we have also performed analysis during several years to define and validate the mission and to prepare all the details.
So, David, in less than 10 seconds, we're going to see the separation of SES-17, which we've all been waiting for. You can see everybody waiting with bated breath in the fishbowl, in the control center, Jupiter's control center. Here we go. You can see it now coming up on the screen. David.
Right. Yes, we have.
Séparation du satellite SES-17.
We have the confirmation now.
Brilliant. That is brilliant news. Everyone's looking very smiley behind their masks. So that's the news. What is the news then? We've got the separation is confirmed.
That's correct. And so now our customers, SES and Thales Alenia, will very soon be in contact with the satellite, and they will start the orbital maneuvers as soon as possible.
We already noticed in the previous road to space that at this stage of the mission, the teams aren't completely rejoicing, they're not completely relaxed. Can we say, though, that this separation was a success, even though there's not smiley smileys?
Yes, indeed. Reaching the orbit is a major step for them. It's the start of the satellite operations in space. As I said, the teams will establish contact with the satellite within 30 minutes and will start deploying the large solar panels of SES-17. And in the coming hours, the plasma engines will be ignited to start climbing to the final orbit.
What are the next phases? Can you talk to us about that? What you will be looking forward to? Yeah,
so right now, as you see in the image to the right, there is the main stage, the upper stage, and then the SILDA, the double launch structure that is still covering the lower passenger, Syracuse 4A. So in the coming minutes, there will be maneuvers that will be performed to separate the SILDA structure prior to the separation of the Syracuse satellite.
So what kind of speed is it going at now?
Well, right now, as you see down in the screen, we're at a speed of 8.5 kilometers per second, and we are climbing up. The altitude is increasing rapidly. As you can see, we are right now at 7.
Yeah, how far is it climbing? How quickly?
Well, you can see that basically it's going up by a few kilometers per second. As you can see on the right, we are right now at 1,830 kilometers and going up fast, yes. So whereabouts are we? If we look back on the map, we are now if we look at the
still
map,
over the Indian Ocean.
Right, we are on the Indian Ocean, and what we mentioned before, as you can see in the simulation, we are Now the sun is rising in the Indian Ocean, which means that the satellites will be able to get sunlight very quickly.
Which was important as an important factor, which is why we have launched off so late tonight. Can you tell us that?
That's correct. That's correct. That's the reason we launched late, so they could have sunlight very quickly after their release from the launcher.
Well, I think we're close to sunlight here in Paris in over 2 hours. It's 4:42 here in Paris. It's quite late here. And we're now waiting for, well, the separation and also the separation of our satellite Syracuse 4A, which we'll be looking forward to, because that will, once that happens, what happens?
Yes, once, of course, once the second satellite is separated, then the upper stage will begin its passivation and its end-of-life maneuvers to make it come back down as much as possible and reduce the lifetime in orbit.
So, for example, when we're in the Jupiter control room, what are we feeling at this moment? You know, it's still obviously very, very tense.
Yes, that's right. For the first customer, SES-17, I would say,
for the customers, yes,
they're a bit relieved because the separation has taken place. But of course, for the second ones, they're still waiting for these important moments, which are the separation.
A lot of people are rubbing their foreheads.
Yes, is waiting patiently for the last events to take place. Yes.
So can you, who are we seeing now on
the screen? So here we have some customer representatives from Syracuse 4A. We have...
How can you recognize them?
Well, usually they have, you can see the small labels in front. Okay. Yes, and their logos.
They all seem to be
here
heads
we have
down.
The mission directors, Thierry Fahem and Christophe Besnard, who are the mission directors who are the Ariane space representatives for these two satellites, together with the satellite customers next to them.
They seem to be looking up. They're looking up at the screen, obviously.
Yes, they are following the last moments. Here we have some other customer representatives.
This was the amphitheater we talked about earlier, was it not?
That's correct, yes.
So there's a huge screen in front of them. They're watching the images live.
That's correct.
Everyone looks very, very serious and very, very focused.
Yes, and we should have the separation of the sealed structure coming up in...
The DDO, will he be telling us that?
In less than 1 minute, yes. We will indeed get the confirmation from the DDO in around 40 seconds.
Around 40 seconds. So we can still see the launcher carrying on its trajectory.
Yes, we can see the sealed structure, the black structure on top of the stage.
How great it is we did have that green panel tonight after that little worry before with the red.
Yes.
See the sun coming up. So where are we? We're still above the Indian Ocean. So now,
yes, we have
36 minutes and 21 seconds. We should be getting the. Oh, here we go.
Right.
David, what is happening?
There we go. We have now the confirmation of the separation of the structure, of the sealed structure. Okay. Yes.
So can you remind us of the function of this important element in the Ariane 5 fairing?
Yes, it's indeed a very important structure that allows to do these launches with two customers at the same time. It's a carbon fiber structure, a very strong structure. Its weight is less than 450 kilos, but it can withstand loads of more than 20 tons. So it's a very efficient, very strong structure.
So do you have any further information from the CVI? Obviously, tension has not yet subsided. Can you explain to us why?
Well, it's again because we are still waiting for the last separation. Everything is moving forward as expected.
Very good news.
Yes, very good news. And as you see, we are now turning. The launcher is turning to put Syracuse 4A in the right position for its separation.
So we've been together on road to space for just over an hour now. In a few minutes, the Ariane 5 launcher will be separating from the second satellite, Syracuse 4A, and put into orbit. This separation will mean that all the teams can, I imagine, finally celebrate the end of the mission and relax. What do you think, David?
Yes, that's right, yes.
And are all separations the same, or do they have their own specificities and challenges? They're obviously not all identical.
No, you're right, Emma. Each separation is a bit different. We have the separation has been analyzed precisely to put the satellite in the required orientation. We got the confirmation that the right orientation has been reached, and therefore we should have a separation in a few seconds.
David, the DDO, sorry to interrupt you, in 10 seconds, sorry, we're going to be announcing, the DDO is going to be announcing the separation of Syracuse 4A, which is obviously a crucial moment.
That's right, yes.
Here we go. It looks like it's separating.
Yes, we have.
Séparation Syracuse 4A. En attente des acquisitions
The
satellites.
applauses.
There we
We
go.
can hear the applauses in the Jupiter control room. That's fantastic.
Yes, the
They
separation.
must be so happy. Look at those smiles on those faces. Well, thank you, David, so much for that. Look, there's applause all around. They must be very, very relieved.
That's right.
And so now their life, satellite's life, begins in space.
That's correct. The launcher
quite
has
incredible.
finished its job. It's up to the satellites now.
It's up to the satellites now. Well, we're now going to be linking up soon. We're going to be connecting with Stefan Israel. We can't wait to hear his first reactions. He must be so relieved that the launch has been a success. And of course, my colleague Baptiste, he will be interviewing him, and I will be interpreting in English for all our English language audiences. And I'd like to thank everybody who stayed up so late to be with us. It's now 10 to 5 Paris time. I imagine in London, 10 to 4, and in Kourou, well, it's late. But David, a last word before we hear Stefan Israel?
Well, no, thank you, Emma, for inviting me tonight, and it's been a
for
pleasure.
Helping. Thank you for explaining everything to us so wonderfully, and for living and experiencing the launch. As I said, in a minute, we will be linking up with Stefan Israel. We're just waiting. Obviously.
So now all the all the satellite teams are now establishing contact with their satellites from their ground stations, the satellite ground stations. And yes, you see in the picture some of the customers from SES, and they are indeed.
So how long will they be staying there? Will they be staying there in the control room for quite a while?
No, usually they should have the confirmation from their ground stations within a few minutes, maybe up to half an hour at the latest. So they
Quite a lot of people in the amphitheater tonight.
Yes.
But no one's allowed to move. What are they waiting for?
Well, they're waiting again for the satellites, the customers to confirm that they have established a contact with their satellites.
How long does it take normally?
It's a matter of minutes, a few minutes.
And how will we know? Will we see just suddenly?
I'm sure we'll get the information, and you will probably see people starting to relax a bit more.
I've just heard that Stefan Israel is just putting on a microphone, and so we're waiting to have a last chat with him. He must, as I said, be very relieved that this launch has been such a success after, as we remember, David, the red coming up on the green panel. Thirsty work. So, as I say, we are still now waiting. And they are still waiting in the Jupiter control room.
That's right.
Waiting to get the okay from the clients.
Yes.
So tonight, I'd like to remind you that we've beaten a record. How many records? 3 records tonight.
Yes, that's right. 3 records. We have we had the heaviest satellites on board with more than 10.2 tons. We also had the heaviest overall launcher performance, more than 11.2 tons, and the tallest. That was
really a first. That was incredible.
The tallest launcher, the tallest Ariane 5 launcher we've ever launched. And you see here.
So here we are. Here we see the images of the launch, which broke 3 records tonight, which David has just been explaining to us what records were broken. The tallest launcher.
The tallest
to go into
launcher.
Space. The heaviest.
The tallest Ariane 5.
Ariane 5.
Yes. That
is quite remarkable. While we're watching these images, we're just waiting to have Stefan Israel. As I said, we'll be talking to my colleague Baptiste, and I will be translating to English, because obviously he is French. But look at those images. That was something very dramatic.
Yes.